I appreciate that. Thank you, everyone. Today is Thursday, June 13th of 2024. This is a joint meeting of the Palm Desert City Council successor agency to the Palm Desert Redevelopment Agency and Palm Desert Housing Authority. Pursuant to Assembly Bill 2449, this meeting may be we have an echo. This meeting may be conducted as a hybrid meeting, allowing public access via a telephone conference or in person, allowing up to 2 council members to attend remotely. May we have the roll call, please?
Mayor Pro Tem Harnick.
Here.
Councilmember Kelly.
Here.
Councilmember Niscandy.
Here.
Councilmember Truby. Here. Mayor Quintanilla.
Present.
All council is present.
Thank you. At this point, we will have the Pledge of Allegiance, which will be led by Councilmember Kelly.
Again.
Today, as I was driving through North Palm Desert, I felt very proud to see our city building so much housing in the center of the Coachella Valley in such close proximity to our future CSU Palm Desert and our rail station. It made me remember the many years that I experienced housing insecurity as a child and reflect upon the fact that housing is a human right. Yesterday, I attended the CEQA Homelessness Committee meeting and toured the Navigation Center in Palm Springs, and I am impressed with the facilities that will help people get back on their feet towards new opportunities. You may or may not know that the fastest growing rate of homeless individuals are mothers with children, small children, and seniors. So we must redefine our vision of who homeless is and the way that we can support. Recently, I was a panelist in the Water Infrastructure Networking Summit and proudly shared that Palm Desert, in partnership with the Coachella Valley Water District, allocated $1.7 million to reduce residential and commercial turf. Overall, 883,286 square feet of turf were removed, saving 51,681,131 gallons of water. The idealized American dream has been depicted as the white picket fence that encompasses a beautiful lawn. We must continue to expand our commitment to sustainability. The American dream of the future will be access to clean water if we do not do more. On Wednesday, June 19th, we will celebrate Juneteenth, reminding us that although the Emancipation Proclamation had been long passed, the news had not been shared with everyone. Slave owners sought to keep their power in place, exploiting newly freed Americans. And this whole month, we are reminded to respect one another, that our right to love who we love and to be who we are, because those principles are human rights too. As we move on to item number 5, awards, presentations, and appointments, we will be postponing item 5A to a future meeting. And we do have item 5B, a presentation on the first annual Para Karate Tournament. Who will be presenting?
Madam Mayor, I don't think the representative is here at this time.
All right, making my notes here. At this point, we will move on to city manager comments.
Thank you, Mayor.
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
I'm sorry, she just arrived.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Council and Mayor. My name is Sensei Tamara Canedo, and I am CEO of Seithan Joku. I'm so honored to be here today, particularly because I would like to introduce to the community what it is that we do in Seithan Joku and the services we offer. And I also am here to invite you personally to my event. So in 2020, I launched Seidenjoku because I had a contract with United Cerebral Palsy. I was with Braille Institute and I was partners with numerous nonprofits in the desert. And as we all know, coronavirus hit. And my clientele are the most susceptible to COVID. So 2 days after I was terminated, I launched on Zoom. And my blind student is who introduced me to Zoom. It changed our life. And when I say that, it's because we as humans had a hard time with the shutdown, but my kids and my students, they were the most affected. They are the definition of susceptible to COVID-19. Fear of that and the mental health crisis that we were experiencing, it put me in a panic mode. So I launched on Zoom, and it was such a blessing because I was able to bring all my students back in a safe setting. As funny as it sounds, I teach karate and I am a sensei, but I also teach behavior, respect, discipline, honor, focus, and all those key values that I think we all need as Americans. And I was able to have that on Zoom. The last 15 minutes of class, we had what was called social time. So it gave them an opportunity to have a voice. And a lot of our students are nonverbal. They're in a wheelchair. They have autism, Down syndrome, cerebral palsy, blind, you name it. We had them in our Zoom classes. And they were able to be in our class and feel like they mattered. So fast forward, just a quick little recap. I don't know if any of you know him, but I am the daughter of a sensei. He died about 7 years ago of dementia, the irony. My father taught mental health to our community, and he died of a mental disease. I went into such a dark rock bottom that the only light I had was working with individuals with disabilities. And my father was technical director for the Karate Olympic Committee, which was a really big deal for us because karate finally made it into the Olympics. And when he died, like I said, I went into such a dark hole. I was in financial advisory at the time, had an incredible mentor, and I found light working with individuals with disabilities. Father John, if any of you may know him, he's a Catholic priest that was in the desert for about 40 years. He came to me one day and was like, I am bringing you 3 kids from OLPH, which is the Catholic school based out of India. And he's like, and you're going to work with them. And I was like, no way. I don't know what I'm doing. And please don't set me up to fail the children. He's like, I believe in you and you're going to do this. I did. After 1 year of teaching them, I went to USA Open with those 3 kids, and the 3 came back with a gold medal. The news took like such incredible stories of our kids. And not even a week later, I received a phone call from the Paralympic coach from Team USA. And he's like, I'm going to mentor you. I watched you. I loved your dad, and everything that you do with the kids, I've just witnessed. And I want to help you grow your program. Today, we have 78 individuals with disabilities. Some of my students are paralyzed from the neck down. You may ask yourself how they do karate. I will tell you the truth. I don't work them physically like I do mentally. I work their confidence. I build them up. I teach them how to believe in themselves, because I personally think that confidence is a superpower that gives every single one of us this ability to bring out the best in ourselves. Today, our students who are paralyzed from the neck down, some of them wiggle their toes now. Some of them are wiggling their hands. For me, I'm a crybaby. I could take a punch in the face and I'm fine, but emotionally, it just breaks me. And it makes me so happy to see this, because not only are they now starting to build some mobility, but the smile in their face. And when I have a dad or a mom that walks in my building, I get a smile at first, and 10 seconds later, I have parents bawling inside of my building because all their life they've been told what their child will never be able to do. Our program is built to prove them wrong. And I like to think of myself as the perfect example of proving people wrong. I was born deformed. I was told I would never be in high heels. I would never be able to do karate. I was on the team. I wear high heels, and I believe I'm a walking example of mindset. And I share that with my kids, and they love that story because that's what they were told, what they can't do. And I'm here to show them what they can. 2 months ago, we flew the Paralympic coach in from Team USA, which was such an honor because one, it's my mentor. He's like a dad to me. And for the last 7 years, I pick up the phone and I'm like, so I have this student. And he finally got to meet the kids that I've been working with. After meeting with him, I got so excited about nationals. Nationals is somewhere new every year, which gives them the culture and the exposure to travel and go somewhere new. But it's been 4 years since my students have been in a ring. To make such a financial investment and for them not to thrive in it, that goes against what I like, what I want for them. I want to build them up, not set them up for failure. Now, in my dojo, I teach them how to fail because that's a part of
As
life.
much as I am truly loving hearing how wonderful things are, I don't mean to cut you off. I feel that it's terribly rude to cut you off, but I'm wondering if we can maybe get to the last 2
Yes.
minutes so that we
Oh,
can.
I'm sorry. I was
If-
told I had 15 minutes.
Oh,
I'm
was,
so
was she
sorry.
told?
5 to 10 minutes.
Oh, I am so sorry. I
No.
never want to be late and over time because then that never goes well. I can wrap this up quick.
Again, out of appreciation and respect for everyone's time, but I love what you're saying, and we can have additional conversations if you'd like.
Thank you.
Thank
And I
you.
apologize. Thank you for saying something to me because if not, I can be up here for the 15 minutes in my head. So thank you. I would like to personally invite you. I have a tournament that we are hosting on July 13th, and it's going to be 78 competitors. My youngest is 3 with autism. My oldest is 79 and blind, and we are so excited. The reason why I want you there personally is because I think they deserve to feel seen. I feel that they deserve to feel like they are important members of our community. Just the city of Palm Desert, I have over 11 students that come from our city, and my vice president is blind and a resident of your wonderful city. With that being said, I hope that you guys can make it, and it was a pleasure to meet you. Have a great evening.
What date was that again? July
July 13th
13th. And where will
Yes.
this be held?
at Rancho Mirage High School, and it starts at 10 a.m. And I shouldn't have it take any long. I don't think we'll be longer than 1 o'clock.
Okay. Thank you so much. I appreciate you. Do we have any comments from our city manager?
Thank you, Mayor. I would like to invite Lieutenant Porras up to give the council a quick briefing on activities in the Sheriff's Department.
Good afternoon. Sorry, I was looking for one of the deputies that I want to introduce you to today. So we have a couple people that are newly dedicated to the city. So I wanted to stop by and introduce you to them. First one is Deputy Adrian Pushling. He's been at the department or the station for 5 years, and he's been recently assigned to the business district team. We all know Deputy Michelle Plush. I think everybody's met her, so she needs no introduction. Next is Deputy Wayne Davidson. He just completed motor training and joined the traffic team. He's been with the station for 16 years, and recently, for the second year in a row, he's received a Mothers Against Drunk Driving award for his efforts to arresting DUI drivers. And last but not least is Deputy Ralph Leal. He just recently joined the team a few months ago. A couple of people have met him, but I wanted to give him the chance to introduce him to everybody else. And he comes from the station in Moreno Valley, and comes with extensive traffic experience and investigation. So thank you very much. I appreciate your time, and thank you. Have a good afternoon.
Thank you very much and welcome to Palm Desert. At this point, we will take council member and mayor reports and requests for action. Let's start with ping pong, Council Member Truby.
Not a whole lot. I just wanted to mention that I did attend the putt-putt on El Paseo last Thursday. And it was an excellent event, as it always is. And I'm proud to say that I checked with Eric and I verified. Our team, our city sponsored hole won most creative. Thanks to apparently the hard work of Vanessa and Shelby. And it was awesome. It was a library themed speakeasy. I got to say it was the best. So very proud of our city for that. And otherwise, just the usual Parks and Rec and Public Safety Committee and all, doing all the usual city business. So thank you so much for your help and support. Appreciate it.
Councilmember Kelly.
Thank you. The topic residents bring up with me most is air quality. And thankfully, it's better this week than last. But we all experienced the added silt in our air since Tropical Storm Hillary. The major vehicle through which we on council collaborate regionally is the Coachella Valley Association of Governments. And through that organization, major efforts are underway. I suspect Councilmember Nestante will report about her CFAG committee where that was discussed, I think just today.
Correct.
Okay. I serve on the executive committee where we are making major efforts to ignite activity by the Desert Healthcare District and also the South Coast Air Quality Management District. One of the initiatives that CFAG is taking is to increase street sweeping on major arteries to collect as much of this material as possible and take it out of circulation. Desert similarly sweeps all the remaining streets in the city, which gives rise to my request for action. There was a time when the street sweeping on my street was very predictable. It happened every other week after the trash was picked up. So that made it easy for people to make sure their cars were off the street and the sweeping was as effective as possible. It has become less predictable. At least I haven't figured out how to predict it. So my request is if staff could learn the schedule and determine the best method to communicate it to residents so that we can all support those efforts by keeping the curbs as open as possible to facilitate effective sweeping.
I support that. Do we have additional support? We were told that we've got,
Yes,
Thank you.
I support that motion.
so if you can, just support the request. We're
A
not
request,
looking
it's
at.
not a motion, it's a request.
Thank you. So if we could ask staff to follow up on that, I think that is a wonderful suggestion. Councilmember Nestande, your
Yeah.
report.
Okay, so I'll just, you touched upon just about every point. So yes, so Coachella Valley Association of Governments, we met today. And the representatives, there's one person from each city, the different water districts, the county supervisor's office, a few of the Indian tribes. So we all attend these meetings. And today, the meeting went almost 2 hours talking about just this topic. And we had speakers from across the valley. So yes, it is an issue. And I did send the letter that the head of CVAG sent to the South Coast Air Quality District. And Amy Lawrence, I believe, has a copy, as does Todd Heilman, that he can send to everybody. And South Coast was telling us that air quality was back to normal, unfortunately. And it's not. And the way they are measuring the data doesn't quite fit what's going on in the desert. They're measuring it from midnight to midnight. But if they would measure it from 3 p.m. to 3 p.m., it shows just how many dangerous days that we have of this finite particle. And typically we were measuring for particle matter of a size 10 diameter, but this silt from hurricane, or we're not calling it hurricane, tropical storm Hillary is 0.25, which is even smaller. So it's much easier to get into your lungs. And once it's in your lungs, it never comes out. So we had a scientist talk about that today as well. And so yes, CBAG is asking for the support of all the cities, and they should be reaching out because we're not going to wait for South Coast air quality to help us. We need their help. We want their help, but we are going to take action regardless. And again, we got the $1 million from the Desert Healthcare Network as well towards the project. There we go.
Thank you. That's great. Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you. And it's great to see all the work that Palm Desert's done with the mulch, with the palm mulch and getting that off the street as well. So I have a few things to share. It's some good news, good things that are happening in our valley. The Dr. Carrion Foundation had their annual scholarship awards presentations at Coachella Valley High School. They gave $180,000 in scholarships to 66 deserving Coachella Valley students. And it was great to see. It really boosts what they're doing and where they're going. I also, yesterday they had Do the Right Thing, and a young man from Palm Desert High School who I met at Student of the Month. His name is Sean Work, and he's doing amazing things. And he had some challenges. He has worked to overcome them. And yesterday he got the Do the Right Thing award because of the great work he is doing. A few of us also, this is another thing that Palm Desert's doing that's great work. We went to the YMCA Gene Benson pre-K graduation. And it was great to see all those young people walk across the stage, and it was a wonderful experience, truly inspiring. And again, that's something that Palm Desert supports and makes happen. And another thing from for Riverside County Transportation Commission yesterday, there were funds allotted. It's the Measure A Specialized Transit Program funding. And there was $230,000 given to Angelview. There were $355,000 allocated for CASA, which is Voices for Children, and $151,000 to Safe House, which is to address a program providing transitional and permanent supportive housing. So there's a lot of great work being done, and it's great to see. Also today, Councilmember Truby and I both attend the Coachella Valley Conservation Commission, and we secured 50 more acres that will be kept open space and protect those very special desert species. And some are endangered, and it really protects our desert for what it should be, what it is, and what it can be. And we all know we're having some trials and tribulations with climate and with the wind and the silt, and these sorts of things help us protect that. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam Pro Tem. So the few updates in the meantime, try to keep it brief. We had our Coffee with the Mayor series was focused on veterans. And I share with folks when we hear, or we want this for veterans, we want that for veterans. Unfortunately, people are sometimes talking about a policy and not the people. And I asked staff to gather veterans because I wanted to know, how do you want to be seen and celebrated and recognized on the 4th of July and on Veterans Day? And educating people that Memorial Day is a somber day to remember the fallen and not a day to barbecue. If you want to barbecue, great, but let's remember the intent. And there was a great conversations on how we can honor our veterans respectfully, and we can follow up on that as well. But as we look to grow our library, it was an opportunity to say, as we re-envision our Veteran Center, what can we do to increase the offering? So thank you to staff that was present and facilitated that. Let's see, I attended, as mentioned, the Water Infrastructure Networking Summit as a panelist discussing how the Coachella Valley and other desert communities can be impactful in conserving water. And this was to a lot of conversations to water district officials in areas in different counties that haven't had to be creative with their landscaping because they had abundant water. The CVAG, a Public Safety Committee, that was just on Monday. And that one, we had a presentation from the California Highway Patrol. The big discussion was on street racing, drag racing, and to remind folks that even if you're just there to watch, you're still subject to, I think, a minimum fine of 500, and I don't remember how long in jail. So it's maybe interesting, but go home and watch Fast and the Furious there. And that if you happen to find anyone that's racing, you can call 911 or you can call the Highway Patrol directly. There's a great collaboration, but the high speeds that you encounter on the freeway, you've got to report them. Sometimes it's easy to say, wow, that guy was driving like a maniac, but we can help report and prevent them from causing an accident down the way. A lot of my time since our last meeting has been spent on regarding the animal shelter, the Coachella Valley Animal Campus Commission. As chair, I've had a lot of ongoing conversations with our nonprofits, with our very generous animal lovers to find solutions. We've identified problems, and I'm proud that our community and our network of engagement is now moving towards action and solution. So thank you to all of you that were involved and were present at the meetings and emailing. And some people were saying, I'm sorry you were going through this. And I told those folks, no, this is what we're here for. We're here to ensure that our animals are treated ethically and that our community is held accountable. So on that happy note, we will now transition over to our public comments, the non-agenda public comments. This time has been set aside for public to address the City Council on issues that are not on the agenda for up to 3 minutes. Speakers may utilize one of the 3 options listed on the first page of the agenda. And because the Brown Act does not allow the City Council to act on items not listed on the agenda, members may briefly respond or refer to the matter to staff for a report and recommendation at a future meeting. Let us please start with Eric Livingstone.
Good afternoon, Council. My name is Eric Livingstone. I'm a nurse at Eisenhower Hospital. I've been there for 20 years. I'm part of the community for upwards of 35 years now. In the inspiration message you spoke of, new housing efforts going in which we fully support, but we do not support it at the detriment of other residents. When the existing Kaufman and Broad residents got their hands on the plans for the new development last week, a new issue became apparent. A 2-foot high, wide, and 2-foot tall bench was planned to abut the entire wall of the existing KB development. It would be impractical to climb up the sloping landscape to sit on a bench, so many wonder about the purpose. The issues with the bench being part of the plan are it will make it very easy for someone to jump over our wall into our residents' yards. The people will also be able to stand on the bench to look into our residents' yards. The Pulte Del Webb Explore Refuge project will not be a gated community, and all the streets will be public accessed from other public streets such as Julie Street and the East Gerald Ford on the north. Near those hundreds and hundreds of apartments currently being built, the hundreds of apartments tenants could have easy and inviting access to those city streets with Del Webb Explore Community Refuge to leisurely drive all the way to near our wall at any time of the day or night. To make matters worse, they are planning to also abut the wall that is 11 feet above us with the same type of bench to run its entirety. People will have a grand view of our entire property and homes. If these benches are for people to sit on as they planned drainage and walkway, they would be located next to the path and ideally under a shade tree, not up an escarpment. This is a violation of privacy as well as the safety and concern for all homeowners along the southern border of the parcel. Because those benches were actually on the plans, it tells us that Pulte therefore the city engineers knew in advance that the wall would be compromised when they dug the drainage trench directly behind the Kaufman Broad community back wall. We demand that the wall behind our homes be reinforced in some other manner. And also, I'd like to make a statement that with this 11-foot wall behind our house, with another 6-foot wall on top of that, I would challenge the council members to allow that to happen behind their house. I don't know if you can imagine coming out into your backyard and looking out where you had a great grand view of the whole Coachella Valley, and now all you see is an 11-foot dirt wall. There's no sky at this point. And on top of that, there's going to be another 6 to 8-foot wall as well. It's been a huge blow to our community and a definite safety concern as well. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much. Our next speaker, if I could have Renee Muggeridge. How do you pronounce it?
Renee Muggeridge.
Marguerite, thank you.
Yes. Honorable members and city personnel. My name is Renee Muggeridge. I served the city of Palm Desert as a citizen on patrol for 12 years and resigned for medical reasons. I had a robbery recently and lost everything. And it forced me to earn a living. So I opened alteration and
Can you lower your microphone a little bit so we can hear you?
I
Thank you.
opened an alteration and tailoring store. I could use my skill without spending so much money. And since February, I'm trying to get my sign up. And I'm paying $2,000 a month for this small place. I consulted Sinorama in February, and the cost was $3,000 to $5,000 to put the vinyl letters on the wall. I cannot afford that kind of money. I need to pay the rent. Therefore, I applied personally from the city, online and in person. Unfortunately, the city personally directing me to big company like Sinorama. I spoke to a couple of people, and they think if I go to this big company, I will get to sign fast and easy. I think as a citizen, I have a right to do it my own. And I don't want to complain, but this is what I am hearing from since February. And I'm paying the rent, and I can't advertise without a name. I made a proper sign matching next to sign and planning to put that following all the safety measures. Next door owner owns my property, and she is very pleased with the sign. One of the city personnel sent me an email as sample. It was kind of insulting to me. I didn't want to mention his name. His samples were like staples, so right there, Jack in the box, fresh and easy, scrapbook. I mean, I'm a little small business person, and he never include my street. My street has a sun cabinetry next to me, bicycles, Ace Hardware, flooring designs, and I matched my sign according to that. And they are on my street, and I'm a small business person. I wanted to pull my business up on to earn a living. And I tried to call city, and a couple of people listened, but nothing happened. So I thought, finally, I decided to call, and somebody will hear my voice.
Thank you very much. Your 3 minutes are up, and we cut
Yes.
everybody off. at
And
3
thank
minutes.
you for everything.
Thank you for your time. Mr. Ron DeLuna.
Good afternoon.
See you.
Mayor Quintanilla, I voted for you in your candidacy for city council. Prior to that, I hosted at my home a group of neighbors and yourself, affording you the opportunity to share your thoughts and visions for District 1. I did not agree with most of what you deemed in need of correction within District 1, but was hopeful you would change the manner in which the city business was conducted. In my opinion, you didn't. I was and still am in favor of 5 districts, but was not a supporter of how District 1 was created. Part of my reasoning paraphrases words of Dr. Martin Luther King, referencing the content and the character of a person and not the color of their skin. The fact that you and I share cultural properties are a coincidence. The only difference being that I have lived with these qualities much longer than you have. I'm under the impression you have attended more conferences during your time in office to include airfare and lodging than any fellow council member currently in office. I would be interested to know what you've gleaned from these trips at the City of Palm Desert's expense, or how it benefited your constituents and/or the City of Palm Desert. I am unaware of anything you have brought to council which has been voted on, approved, and implemented to the benefit of your constituents and/or the City of Palm Desert in general. I appreciate it takes a majority of votes to be successful getting a motion approved, but it appears your success rate is 0, which is unsettling, appreciating the City of Palm Desert has spent tens of thousands of dollars paying for your seat on council over the past 3.5 years to include medical insurance. In my mind, a good leader has the ability to overcome the odds and prevail. To date, I have not witnessed your ability to do so, much to the detriment of our district and/or the City of Palm Desert. In your campaign, I remember you getting endorsements from people outside District 1, to include career politicians. I would welcome having them here to Chambers and share with me how my observations are without merit. In closing, I perceive there is an us against them mentality in your approach to governance. There is nothing to
Thank you
indicate
very much, Mr. Doolittle. We
otherwise.
cut everybody off at 3 minutes. And
The
I
only
do
person
invite
who
you
seemed,
to-
the only person
I
who seemed
do
to have
invite
benefited
you to be
is
able
you.
to watch our meetings in which I do give a full report about what I have gleaned from the conferences, including the different sections. But if anybody would like to follow up on that topic, I would be more than happy to do so. Mr. Peter Korochonsky, how do I pronounce that? Korchinsky, thank you.
My wife Jana and I moved into our home on Woodward Drive in August of 1997. It was located at the back of the Kaufman Road development with an optimal north-south exposure far from the traffic noise from Frank Sinatra Drive. And most importantly, had a fantastic view from the north of the Indio Hills and the little San Bernardino Mountains behind them. We felt like we bought a home on Boardwalk Avenue. Within a few years, Marriott started development of Shadow Ridge Resort, adjacent to us to the west. Our little slice of heaven was quickly transformed into hell on earth. Billowing clouds of dust enveloped us for weeks on end as the earthscaping had begun. We quickly learned terms like abatement measures and PM10, which are inhalable particles with diameters of less than 10 micrometers. Human hair measures 50 to 70 micrometers. They are so small that they effectively act as a gas. When breathed in, they penetrate deep into the lungs. Exposure to high concentrations will cause coughing, wheezing, asthma attacks, bronchitis, high blood pressure, heart attacks, and strokes. Our community, along with Palm Desert Greens to the south of Shadow Ridge, rallied. With the aid of local media and the EPA, our battle became known. Representatives of the Marriott Corporation eventually came by and met with those who filed claims and wrote checks to them. Others were part of a class action suit. I would gladly have traded that check for never having that event occur, not to mention not having health problems years later. We were aware of the refuge project to be built behind us. In fact, my wife was one of the people who approved the original plan presented back in 2022. Renderings on their website showed that development would be at the same elevation as ours. On Monday, May 20th at 6 a.m. sharp, the grading started with thundering troops of large yellow earth-moving equipment directly behind our wall. First, the drainage ditch, then they began to build an escarpment reaching an 11-foot high plateau, completely taking away the view of this man-made ridge. With this man-made ridge, how could this be? We were told by city officials that the refuge project was sold to Del Webb Pulte and renamed Explorer, and that the 11-foot elevation was approved by the city council. It was, as they said, a done deal, and nothing could be done. We were victims of what is commonly known in business as bait and switch. Memories of Shadow Ridge returned with clouds of particulate matter raining down from 11 feet, and our city officials thought this was a good idea. Exactly what thought process was used? Who exactly is going to step up and take financial responsibility for current and future expenses
I thank you for your
resulting from
time.
this decision?
3 minutes
Profit
are
over
up.
people.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you. If Miss Jana would be up. Is it Jana or Jana? Jana Karczynski, if you could please come up.
Council, Madam Mayor. Our community off Frank Sinatra Drive feels that the city's approval process for the refuge development was a flawed process. The original plan approved by neighboring communities was changed in a deceptive manner as outlined in our appeal to the city. Now a man-made 11-foot high plateau along with a drainage canal carved behind our block walls creates a flooding hazard for the entire Kaufman and Broad community. Our properties have become the Pulte development overflow. Pulte needs to resolve their own drainage problems within the constraints of their parcel by creating appropriate and ample catch basins and pumping stations without jeopardizing their neighbors. The escarpment will cause flooding into our neighborhood, which has had no flooding for 28 years, even with atmospheric rivers and Storm Hilary. Pulte decided to save money, no pumping stations, no need to transport sand away, and make money, homes with views, by building the plateau at our expense, when it can be shown to be unnecessary. Our wall is compromised by the trench dug behind it. We learned that they knew the wall would be compromised and planned to fix it by abutting a 2-foot high, 2-foot wide bench along the entire length of the wall. The attached bench will make our properties less secure, making it easier for someone to jump our wall. The only reason for the bench is to fortify the wall. If it was for sitting, it would be in the shade along the walkway. Since the damage is already done, we want Pulte Group to come up with a plan approved by our community to fix the wall immediately. Our property values have been put in jeopardy so Pulte can sell more expensive homes with views. In the state of California, someone may not deliberately or maliciously block another's view with a structure that is of no reasonable use to the owner. Since there was no good reason to build the structure other than greed, that took away our views. We want the elevation graded back to the original. Today we found that all the lots on the top of the plateau have been sold, yet no model homes exist on the site. Sold to families or corporate America. Is our quiet community going to have to contend with noisy party houses? We are being profoundly affected by this development, especially our safety and property values, because the letters from the city were confusing and the refuge site was not updated properly. We are not adequately informed about the meetings to approve changes to the 2022 plans. Nothing was ever stated in writing that refuge was
Your
sold.
3 minutes are up as well. Thank you. I greatly appreciate you. Mr. Brad Anderson?
Hello, good afternoon. My name's Brad Anderson. I currently live in the city of Rancho Mirage. I came to speak on some other items, and I thought I'd take general comment while I'm here. So I wanted to comment on the CBAG meetings. I've been going to those, and I wanted to monitor this PM10 issue, and I totally forgot. So I want to apologize because I did miss today's meeting. But I just want to, I don't have to remind this board, but I do have to remind the people that may be listening that the director of CVAG, Coachella Valley Association of Governments, they have an agenda to, I want to say, fearmonger when it comes to PM10. And I believe the director herself said something about chicken litter, and the sky is falling. And that's his term. So that tells you right there all you need to know, that this is being hyped up for whatever agenda purpose. I'm not sure yet, but maybe it has something to do with the environment in Palm Desert itself. But anyway, I just want to have people go to those meetings, monitor them yourself, because CVAG, SCAG, we're talking about the North Palm Desert up by the freeway. And when I look at that, I think SCAG, I think Southern California Association of Governments, because it's so tightly knitted communities with no parking. So that just tells me that everything I need to know. But what I came to talk about really is the mosquito and vector control. You probably know that they have another West Nile fine, I guess, in this area, and La Quinta too. I really worry about that organization. I want to just inform people that they had an early retirement, so they lost, I think, like 8 people because they paid them off to leave. And now you have probably inexperienced people doing it this year. And that organization too has an agenda to maybe fearmonger more than they need. And it's all because to drive revenue for that organization. And I can honestly say I know that. So don't scare yourselves to death, but do everything you can to reduce your mosquito breeding around your homes, and that's all you can do. And I just want to remind this board that you do have the longest serving trustee on the mosquito district or mosquito board right now, and I think he's headed to 20 years, if not close, and that's just excessive for a appointee to be on a board that long, especially when every year the mosquitoes apparently gets worse. So that's what I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Anderson. Mr. Heilman, are there ongoing conversations regarding the matter with the homeowners? I know we wanted to be sure to respect those that came to let them know where they're heard.
There is. In fact, Richard and his staff will be hosting a public meeting, I believe, next week, Richard.
I believe it'll be the 25th. We actually have a notice that will be mailed out tomorrow to all the residents within the surrounding area. So we'll be hosting a meeting here in council chambers.
Perfect. Thank you. I just wanted to be sure that you're aware that we are looking forward to hearing from our residents. Now we move on to item number 9, the consent calendar.
Madam
I
Mayor.
did forget to ask, do we have speakers online? My apologies.
Yes, I do have one. And for those on Zoom, if you want to participate in public comment, please click the raise hand button on your computer or smartphone. And if you're joining by calling in on your phone, please dial *9 to raise your hand. And when called upon, press *6 to unmute yourself. And the speaker is Maria Torres.
Hello, my name is Maria Torres. I live at 73530 Woodward Drive. I'm speaking on behalf of myself, my husband, and neighbors. We're seriously worried about the project directly behind us, which is the Pulte Explorer Refuge Community and all its violations. Our greatest concern is that by elevating the pad and creating what is basically a drainage canal between our block wall and the new pad, you've put our homes in danger of flooding. In all due respect, we're aware that lay personnel cannot interpret grading plans properly, so city officials and even the planning Planning Commission could easily have missed the details of the impressive height behind our homes and all the dangers unless they were diligently seeking that information and able to evaluate the consequences. But according to the approved grading plan, we discovered that the storm drainage system at its furthest point, the southwest corner, is 291 feet elevation, flows downward to the northeast corner retention basin, and discharges at an invert of 269 feet. So if at the lowest point they have gravity drainage, then why raise the pad approximately 11 feet? There's no just cause. So what explanation do you have to put us all in peril and block our views? Which, by the way, as you heard, the state of California has a provision that someone may not deliberately and maliciously block another's view with a structure that has no reasonable use to the owner. In fact, on the refuge-specific plan, which is linked on the city's website on page 55, section 2.1 clearly states view corridor preservation, protect and preserve existing signature views of the hills and mountains from the city. Section 3.1 states open space network require new development to comply with requirements of the Coachella Valley Multiple Species Habitat Conservation Plan, which includes scenic vistas, and also states that the applicant intends to comply with all CVM-SHCP requirements, ensuring that scenic views are taken into consideration. Then page 35 says that they will avoid direct view into neighboring single-family yards. And page 44 says that the direct view into neighboring single-family yards shall be avoided. They are obviously in violation of all of these. So our questions to you are, why has this been allowed to happen? Where did the system fail? And how are you going to correct it? Whatever negligence has caused these violations, it is not right and needs to be rectified immediately. Therefore, we respectfully request that you further investigate and correct the flooding and erosion hazard to our existing neighborhood, the violation of privacy, the violation of the CVM-SHCP requirements, and the violation of their own specific plan approved by the city of Palm Desert. Thank you very much for your prompt attention to this matter.
Thank you. Do we have anyone else?
No other public comment, Madam Mayor.
At the conclusion of public comments, we now move on to the consent calendar. All matters listed on the consent calendar are considered routine and may be approved by one motion. The public may comment on any items on the consent agenda within the 3-minute time limit. Individual items may be removed by the City Council for separate discussions. And I see that we do have a request for item number 9T to be pulled. Are there any other items that anyone would like pulled?
Yes, Madam Mayor, I'd like to pull item 9D, please.
We have 9D, 9T as in Thomas, and D as in David. Is that correct? Any other comments or items to be pulled? With that, I'll entertain a motion to move forward the balance and discuss.
Move the remainder.
Second.
Councilmember Trubee.
Did it not lock?
Motion passes 5-0.
Perfect. So we have 9D. If we could have your questions or the report, please. Moving over to, sorry, moving my agenda over. Thank you.
9D, we're looking for an acceptance of a donation of Desert Gold, which is a triptych that was part of our city's 50th anniversary celebration. It was created by artists Kelly Pellegrini and Tyler Ontiveros, and they had children paint the mural, and they've finished it up and are looking to donate it to the city to be placed here at City Hall. And with that, I'll take any questions.
Perfect. Actually, I put together a few thoughts about this. I didn't have any questions, but I appreciate the heads up for everybody's benefit. Sure. But I just want to state my case here that I am actually opposed to removing the photos of General Patton and the associated activity of the Army here in Palm Desert during World War II in exchange for this particular art piece, which is beautiful, by the way. General Patton is widely regarded as America's greatest general, maybe second only to General Washington. He was feared by our enemies and revered by those who served under him. He drove the Axis forces out of North Africa, through Italy, and back to Germany. He was prescient in his prediction of the Cold War misery that would be endured by millions in Eastern Europe. I am proud of Palm Desert's association with General Patton and would like to see those photos remain in their prominent location at City Hall. Thank you.
May I make a quick comment?
Of course. Well, I want him to stay there, but thank you.
There are 12 historical photos, the ones that you're speaking of. 6 have been identified to remain in the lobby. On the east wall, where there are currently 4, we're going to reorganize to have 6 remaining. And the city clerk's office have identified which 6. The remaining 6 will be behind public walls in the city clerk, city manager's office, and Patton is one of them.
Excellent. You have reassured me and I appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
So does that satisfy you, Councilmember Truby? Okay.
Okay.
I was.
So can we entertain a motion to approve now that, would you like to approve or motion to?
Yeah. I'm
accept
sorry. I will
them?
move make a motion to approve item D. Thank you very much.
I'll second the motion.
Motion passes 5-0.
Item 9T. One second here. Let me move that along here. Okay, item 9T. The speaker is Mr. Brett Anderson.
Great. Thank you again, Brad Anderson. I currently live in the city of Ransom Again, I just wanted to speak on this item while I'm here. It's just so everybody knows, it's just the city council approving a letter a letter of support, I believe, for some Senate bills. I think it's both Senate bills and Assembly bill concerning the elimination of plastic bags altogether, the heavier duty ones. And I just want to just maybe tread lightly with the recommendations, because we know how this happened before. So I'm sure something will happen again. So I'm worried when the city supports these type of issues or type of bans or type of requirements or on private businesses. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mayor Pro Tem.
May I move the item?
That's what I was
Okay.
going to do.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
So I'll second it.
Motion passes 5-0.
Having finished the matters on the consent calendar, we now move on to our action calendar. Okay, which is on page 9 of our agenda. The public may comment on individual action items within the 3-minute time limit. Speakers may utilize one of the 3 options listed on the first page of the agenda. Item 10A, we do have one speaker for item 10A, Mr. Stephen Nelson.
Madam Mayor, we
sorry.
typically do staff presentation and then.
My
public
apologies.
comment.
I got ahead of myself even with the cheat sheet here.
Mayor and Council, Chris Escobedo, Assistant City Manager. This item comes before you as a request from the last meeting. Staff is seeking council guidance with respect to the recognition of Gay Pride Month. I'll have a couple slides for you. Last year, the city issued a proclamation in recognition of Gay Pride Month. It was issued in June. At the same time, in January of this year, the city adopted within the social media commemorations recognition of Pride Month, as well as Greater Palm Springs Pride. For this item, we surveyed Coachella Valley cities to understand what they do in recognition for Gay Pride. And what we asked here up on the screen is, do you commemorate Pride? And if so, do you issue a proclamation, publicize it via social media, host events, sponsor, or commemorate Pride in any other way? We had a variety of responses ranging from not commemorating it to issuing proclamations and recognizing it on social media to hosting events, sponsoring events, and having large-scale festivals. So In the report, we have summarized the response by city. One correction that was made is that after the publication of the report, we learned more information on how Cathedral City recognizes Pride, and so we included that in the supplemental yesterday. Also in the staff report, we have included the link for members of the community to request proclamations, so that link is in there. At this point, we have not received any requests. So with respect to this item, staff is seeking council guidance. We have listed out the questions in the report, and then I can just go through them briefly. If the council wishes to commemorate Gay Pride, if yes, then either June or November or both. June is when nationally it is recognized. Locally in November, it is recognized due to the weather, in large part with the events happening in Palm Springs. Another question that we found in the survey is 2 cities do display the pride flag on city poles. So if that's something the council wants to explore, we can bring back a policy for consideration. Also, the banner space right out at City Hall is used to commemorate different types of events. So that could be an option for council. Also, if the council wishes to explore participation in Palm Springs Pride Parade for interested council or staff, hosting events, sponsoring events, and if this direction or guidance you give us tonight will apply to future years, or don't commemorate Pride. So with that, staff concludes their report. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you so much. Do we have any questions, comments? Okay, I thought it was a hand that you had. Okay, since the only comment we have is from Mr. Stephen Nelson.
Mayor and City Council, I raised this issue at the last meeting, and I come to you at the middle of Pride Month. I'm very proud to live in Palm Desert. As Mayor Pro Tem Harnick recited the diversity clause in the last month, my hopes is that we follow through. We follow through with the information that is in there that guides our city to be a welcome city for all. So my request is to you, let's be a leader and not a follower in this area. And let's show our support for all residents. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Nelson. Do we have any comments online?
No public comments online, Madam Mayor.
At this point, we would like to now open the discussion or conversation with my peers. Any thoughts?
Yes.
Please.
We have a great opportunity for leadership because we have an advantage over all other cities in the Coachella Valley. This corner space and the exterior wall of City Hall is a perfect display space. And we've used it to support various Heritage Month celebrations, special events. My suggestion is that we use that space to express our support for Pride Month in November, when it's receiving the maximum amount of local attention, and that in June, we issue a proclamation as we did in 2023 to make sure that folks don't feel we're ignoring the international celebration of Pride. When it comes to the Palm Springs Parade, my suggestion would be we treat this like other events. If multiple council members are both available and desirous of participating, then we would register. But I don't see that we need an explicit ongoing policy. Personally, I have a recurring conflict the first Sunday of the month, but in any given year, normal policy would be if multiple folks are interested and available in an event, then we register. So those are my three suggestions, which I'd be happy to put in a motion.
Thank you, Councilmember Kelly. Any thoughts?
I absolutely agree with November as far as having the banner. If we want eyes on it, it's November. Our average daily traffic count will give us a lot of eyes on it there. So I think that would be great on the City Hall. The June makes sense for the proclamation. At least we're showing, of course, that we support what is internationally supported. We can do the proclamation in June, put the banner in November. And again, if the staff and these council members wish to participate in the Palm Springs Pride Parade, then there is a reason to do it. We have participated a number of times in the Pride Parade, so let's take a look and see if people are available to be part of that and if they wish to be part of it. So I absolutely support your ideas on that.
Is that a second?
I don't think did you make a motion? You hinted. Okay.
I think your
Well,
microphone-
not everyone's got a chance to discuss, but I will second for discussion purposes.
Additional thoughts from my peers?
All right, well, I wrote down a few thoughts again. My opinion, our council's mandate is simply to provide safe neighborhoods, high-quality roads, beautiful parks, prosperous business atmosphere, and sound fiscal management. Regarding the matter before us, I would much rather that we pursue a policy of celebrating groups and individuals for how they contribute rather than how they identify. Palm Desert is, by all measures, a welcoming city where everyone can expect equal treatment and consideration. I would advocate for a simple social media acknowledgement and a proclamation, and I think that's adequate acknowledgement of the Pride Month.
May I add too, because we do customarily do the social media call out. So I do, maybe perhaps we need to add that to the, if that's a friendly amendment to your
Is that
motion.
amenable to an addition?
Oh, of course. I think the underlying assumption was that we would do that as we do for all other occasions on our list. So, yes.
Well, and it kind of says that in the staff report now that I'm rereading. Thank you.
Any thoughts, Councilmember Nestande?
My general thoughts are that the way I live my life and the way I make decisions on the council is I try to treat everyone equally and also put my place in their shoes. Somewhat like the golden rule, treat others how you want to be treated. And that's what I believe is a great policy. So I tend to shy away from doing what I call identity politics. I do prefer to be all encompassing and accepting everybody, but my council members have made some good suggestions that I could support.
Glad to hear that. As far as my words are of support to my peers for being open-minded and the way that this conversation impacts those not only that are present, those that are fully out and expressing themselves, but to bring courage for those that have not fully been able to express themselves. And that's the quiet recognition that you don't have to be out to know that you are valued in a city that does in fact accept the diversity, not only in having it in a written policy, but through our actions and our everyday activities. I am very happy to say that after our last discussion, we now have allocated in one of our meeting budgets for events to include funding for the Harvey Milk Breakfast for next year. So I think we are making moves in a positive direction to embody the sense of inclusivity that we speak on. Do we have any other comments on the matter? I think we have a motion and a second.
Motion passes 4-1 with Councilmember Tribby voting no.
We move on to item 10B. Consider resolutions to place a measure on the November 5th, 2024 general municipal election ballot to establish a 1-cent city transaction to use tax, consolidate with the statewide general election, and set the deadlines and rules for arguments. I see our Director of Finance step forward.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Good afternoon, City Council members. Veronica Chavez, Director of Finance. The item before you tonight, as she mentioned, is about the sales tax measure. But before we get into it, the data, at least, I'd like to remind everyone that in order to maintain the integrity of the process and respect the community participation, please remember that this is not the time to discuss the ballot question itself and the language. Thank you. Thank you, Anthony. So as I mentioned, tonight we're here to talk about the 1-cent sales tax measure. In light of rising emergency response times, the city began exploring a new fire station in North Palm Desert at the beginning of 2023. The operational costs associated with the station, once added to our forecast, showed an issue in future years. But in order to maintain the city's expected levels of service, additional staffing and infrastructure is clearly needed. When we speak about the city budget, we're generally talking about the general fund, and that's where all the regular general services are paid from. 60% of our general fund revenue is driven by the tourism industry. So that includes TOT and sales tax, TOT being transient occupancy tax for the hotels, and our sales tax. The general fund pays for all the services, as I mentioned previously, and the city has adopted a policy to maintain adequate reserves in case of emergencies. One of the things we discovered in exploring different revenue sources is that our sales tax is driven by 70% of non-residents. So it ended up being a 50-50 split between those within the Coachella Valley and those outside of the Coachella Valley. So all visitors contribute 70%. In addition to the anticipated fire station needs, the city has seen tremendous growth in our expenditures in the past few years, and the growth is attributed to minimum wage increases, scarcity of services in the Coachella Valley, and then also we are a contract city, so third-party negotiated contracts definitely affect our costs. And then fuel costs, that's something that all of us have experienced, and that has added to the city's costs as well. And those costs exceed the growth of revenue year over year by a substantial percentage. So staff has been analyzing this forecast over the past year. And what you see here is broken down into the next 5 years. Our operational costs that we are anticipating for a contractual change with CAL FIRE results in an increase in just cost in general, but in addition to that, the additional fire station takes a bump as well. Those two items alone increase our operational costs by 27-28 to the tune of about $15 million in total as a transfer from the general fund, which is about $10 million more than what we're doing today.
In addition to that, we're seeing the same increase in police services over the next 5 years. And so those costs by 27-28 are anticipated to be just under $3 million as well. There are other operational costs that are included in here, but after 5 years, we see that with revenues remaining the same, we are at a $17 million deficit in a short amount of time. And so this causes grave concern for staff. So when we were looking at this, we considered several options. We looked at all the different revenue sources that are available to us. Obviously, Prop 13 means property tax is not something we can touch. And so what we looked at was the Prop A fire tax, increasing that. We looked at increasing TOT. We looked at creating a citywide CFD. And then we also looked at imposing a utility user tax, which we currently do not have, but other cities use. Each of these examples, with the exception of the increase to TOT, placed a heavier burden of the responsibility on the residents. And given that our current revenues are driven by visitors, we wanted to make sure that those costs were shared equitably between visitors and non-visitors. And so we thought about TOT. In order for TOT to support the deficit we're anticipating, we would have to double it. So we would have to go from 11% to 22%, which would put us way out of alignment with the other Valley cities. I believe the highest is Palm Springs at 13.5. That would hurt our businesses, that would hurt our revenues as well. There is an offset to doing something like that. And so the one option that did provide enough revenue to offset the anticipated deficit is the sales tax measure. So I wanted to make sure that you had some of the facts that we've learned over the course of the last year about the 1 cent sales tax measure. A 1 cent sales tax measure, 100% of it would remain in Palm Desert. The state could not take it. The county could not take it. It would always reside here to fund local expenditures. It would generate immediately about $25 million to the city to be used towards the different city services that are listed above: police, fire, parks, public works, anything that falls within the general fund. But we'll go back into these items later when we talk about the spending plan. The cost to provide services, as I mentioned earlier, is 70% plus. If you look in the bottom right corner of the presentation, we broke it down for you to show you that the Valley cities, excluding Palm Desert, generate about 36%. Outside of the Valley, it's 38%, and this leaves about 25% generated by Palm Desert residents. There are certain items that aren't taxed, and we thought that was important to mention. Most groceries, medications, medical supplies, diapers, prescriptions, and most recently, feminine products are not taxable. And of the 9 cities, Palm Desert remains one of the lowest sales tax rate at 7.755%, and the county has a max sales tax of 9.75%. The city truly only receives 1% of that total 7.75, and the diagram that you see in the top right corner of the presentation shows what 8.75, the additional 1%, would look like if it were passed, where the city would then receive 2% of the total. Staff recognized that providing this info to the community early was very important. And so over the course of the past 9 months, we have been conducting substantial community outreach with regard to our future budget constraints. And so now I'd like to invite Rob up here so he can talk to you about our community outreach efforts.
Thank you, Ms. Chavez, and thanks, Mayor and Council members, for this time. As was mentioned, the city's been engaged in a robust outreach effort surrounding this issue of the potential sales tax. This dates back to last fall, and the effort really centered around an educational and informational campaign to engage the community on the issues of the city's services. What does the city do from the standpoint of public safety, the maintenance of streets, roads, emergency preparedness, parks, libraries, and other services? And what are the finances that underpin that? Where does the city receive its revenues, and how does it invest them back in those services, and some of the challenges that the city's having, and to have a forthright conversation about some of the budgetary challenges, particularly on the front of rising costs. We then presented the community with an outline of what the potential revenue measure would look like and how that might contribute to the city's fiscal sustainability and the maintenance of these services. We did this through the creation of assets on the city's website on Engage Palm Desert. We had a narrative along these lines. We also recorded a series of videos with the city's department heads on these individual topics, on public safety, on public works, introducing folks to these issues and also the people behind them, which we think is also very important. And we also centered around events. We conducted over 16 community events, going to community groups, civic groups, community groups, nonprofits, business organizations, the chamber and so forth, as well as inviting the community into a series of town halls that the city convened here in City Hall and elsewhere throughout the community. These were publicized on the city's social media, through its newsletter assets, and also through a piece of direct mail that was distributed citywide to every resident in the city in English and in Spanish. These events were attended by hundreds of local residents. We also walked them through some of these same issues and asked for their feedback and got many responses that really fell in line with some of the other survey work the city has done. The issues that we got back from the community, public safety is really at the forefront. 911 emergency response, keeping our public areas safe and clean. Crime patrols, our sheriffs, our firefighters, as well as the maintenance of our infrastructure. I think one of the things that really resonated with folks was a discussion of the storms that had come through the city last fall, costs the city incurred in the cleanup there, but also the investments the city's made over the years in terms of preparing for such events and want to continue to maintain those activities.
Thank you, Rob. And so as Rob mentioned earlier, we did do some surveys, and following the last town hall meeting, we engaged FM3 to conduct a survey, scientific survey, to get a sense of where the community was at and what their priorities were. And the page you have up here now were the top 5 priorities identified by the community. Maintaining emergency response was the highest at 92%. Then we go through maintaining police services, fire services, areas that are safe and clean, down to streets and roads, which was the first thing that wasn't police and fire related that was commented on, that came in at 80% approval. 60% of the respondents felt that the city is doing a good job overall, and 57% supported a sales tax measure when they were asked about it. The ballot question, we mentioned it earlier. As a result of the surveys and going through the community outreach, staff worked closely with legal counsel and the sales tax measure team of consultants and developed the ballot questions before you. I have 2 versions up here because we sent out the report. They go out really early, and as we reviewed them, we were refining them with legal counsel. And so you can see highlighted just some wording changes. We are limited to our words, so we have a total of 75 words in the message. And they were just for clarity's sake and to align with not only the community responses, but our spending plan.
Excuse me, Mayor, could I ask a question more on that slide?
Yes, ma'am.
You sent out an updated version this afternoon. And I think it's different from what's on the screen.
You are correct. Unfortunately, at the last minute, legal counsel reached out to me and made me aware that the word count was over. And so I had to make an adjustment to improving stormwater systems, to including it with keeping public areas safe, clean, maintaining streets, parks, and infrastructure. That's the blue area highlighted at the bottom. So that the words would accommodate what we can put in the ballot measure.
Right. So obviously you've been doing a lot of work today. And am I correct that your proposal will include the ability to make non-substantive refinements a bit further?
We will have the ability, I'm going to ask for that based on the resolutions. The ballot question is what is being presented to you today on the bottom.
Did that satisfy your inquiry?
It was responsive.
Okay,
Yes.
perfect.
My apologies. So I mentioned the spending plan earlier. Based on community feedback, we developed a 5-year spending plan identifying the priorities to be addressed by the funds if they are approved, if the measure is approved, I'm sorry. These items that we've listed here are subject to annual budget and audit requirements that the city has to go through with all of its funds. The priorities are, for priority 1, we have the top 7 projects or costs that are listed, and they would be done within the first year as upon implementation. And then priority 2 costs would follow in years 2 through 5. So in closing, staff recommends approval of the necessary resolutions in substantial form to call for the placement of a general 1-cent sales tax measure, including expressing the spending priority of such tax. Before I conclude my report, I would just like to express gratitude to staff, the sales tax measure team, and police and fire for being at the community meetings. They added such support and responded to the community effortlessly. And so I truly appreciate that. And we're all here for any questions.
Thank you very much. Did we have more cards? Thank you. Do we have any clarifying questions that my peers may have in addition to Councilmember Kelly?
I do.
By all means.
I think you began by saying that we should not discuss the precise measure language tonight. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And I want to make sure I fully understand what it's proper for us to talk about tonight and what it's not. Do I understand correctly that we should not use our discussion time here to express whether we personally support or don't support the proposed tax?
I may have to call Jim Priest up to help me with this. I will say that we can discuss the measure as a whole. What we've asked is that we not discuss the language within the ballot question.
I want to make sure we do have the clearest possible guidance about what to talk about and what not to talk about.
She'll hit a buzzer. I'm sure she's got a magic buzzer somewhere.
I'm going to ask him to be elevated if you don't mind.
By all means.
He's coming online right now. Mr. Priest?
He's muted.
Mayor, perhaps we could take a short break.
I think that would be a good idea. Let technology take its course. It is 5:29. Let's be back at 5:40. So we are at break until 5:40. Thank you.
Oh.
Mr. Priest, are you there?
Here, can you hear me?
We can hear you. Thank you.
Wonderful. Just one council member
Okay,
more
you-
before we resume. Thank you. If we can please hear from Mr. Priest.
Thank you. Good afternoon, members of the City Council. Jim Priest, Best in Create. Apologies earlier. We seem to have been having some sort of Zoom glitch going on. To respond to the previous question before the recess, what the City Council's options are in this case would be to either place the measure on the ballot, adopt the resolution with the ballot question as revised by staff and proposed this evening. Second option would be to not adopt the resolution, not call the measure this evening, and give it back to staff, let staff work on the ballot question a little bit more, and we could bring that back at a subsequent council meeting. And a third option would be to appoint a 2-member subcommittee that could work with staff, revise the ballot question, and again, that would be presented back to the council at a later meeting. There is still time to place this measure on the ballot. August 9th is the legal deadline. And I understand you do have a couple more meetings coming up. So those are available options. What I would suggest that the council not to do is engage in a discussion specific about the ballot question this afternoon. That would be much better left to staff reworking the question or again, the subcommittee. And that would be my advice to the council on this issue.
Thank you.
May I follow up?
Yes.
I'm still left uncertain about whether it is appropriate for council members in the course of this discussion to express whether we do or do not support the measure, assuming it moves forward.
Yes, council member, certainly. That's part of the purpose of this afternoon. This item is to discuss whether you wish to place this measure on the ballot in the first place. So certainly it is within the proper scope of discussion this afternoon to discuss the actual sales tax measure and whether the council supports placing this on the ballot or not. That is certainly within the scope of your discussion.
So I understand that it's permissible to discuss whether we support putting it on the ballot. Are we supposed to refrain from discussing whether we would urge people to vote yes?
The court decisions that we have on this indicate that the city council and city council members in the course of this meeting, because this is the meeting where you're considering possibly placing this on the ballot, you may express political positions of support or opposition, depending on what your particular position is on this measure. You may do that in the context of this meeting because it is an open public meeting and alternative viewpoints can be expressed from the public. So yes, you can talk about your support being in favor of putting this on the ballot and your general support for the measure or opposition if you have opposition.
Thank you.
Okay, I just have some questions. And I just want to be very clear. When you were talking about, on one of your slides, you said and you don't have to pull it up, it's okay. But you were talking about what is taxed and there are some things that are not taxed. I just want to make sure I'm right and that other people understand rent is not taxed.
That's correct.
Okay, and you did talk about medical supplies, but a medical appointment is not taxed either, is it?
Correct.
Okay. And I would like to express right now that I am fully supportive of the staff's recommendation. And as soon as we can make a recommendation or we can make a motion to vote on that recommendation. I am poised and ready to move staff's recommendation.
Any additional thoughts, questions? Following up on the conversations of what is not taxed, again, that is not including property taxes, and the gas tax is already regulated by the state, so we're not going to have any impact on that, correct?
Correct.
Okay. When we're looking at the amount of revenue that we're expecting to generate overall, with an estimated 70% coming from out of Palm Desert or outside of Palm Desert, what is that 30% approximately that will be collected from our own residents?
I'm going to need Excel.
Sorry about that.
It's okay. It's about, let's see, 7.5 million. Thank you, Rob. 7.5 million.
Sorry, I'm always trying to make notes here, non-PD. Now, hypothetically, and again, I know this is not a scientific survey, but my brain is thinking in numbers. So if we take, what was that amount again? The
7.5 million.
7.5 million, okay. So if we take these 7.5 million and divide it by the number of residents we have in Palm Desert, do we know the cost per person?
I will try and do that quickly for you. Approximately $135 per person. I used 54.
Okay.
1,000.
Yeah, so as mentioned, 135 is a number, again, generic across the board. And as my colleague here mentioned, that not everyone spends the same. My concern is as we look to how many people are already living on a very fixed income. And because for some people, the 139 a year is not that big of a deal, but if your 139 is something that you could use to spend on additional things that you need, like an additional copay for somewhere else, the copay wouldn't be taxed, but it would allow you to spend in other places. So the way I'm looking at it is, yes, there's the big picture, but when we're talking about the big picture used to impact the individual people collectively, those are just some of the thoughts that I've got going on, that it's not going to hit everyone the same despite coming at an average number.
Right. And if I may expand on that, if you asked me this, I would do the, analysis of it, and there would be a weighted average based on people's spending habits. And based on what you said, those people who have lesser discretionary funds would have a lower amount that would be attributed to them because of that.
Okay. Yeah, I'm just conversations that the misconception that used to be, right? Palm Desert was a wealthy community, Rancho Mirage was a wealthy community because of how many people came to spend their retirement years here. They had built up what they wanted for their substantial quality of life, but as those financial situations decline, as the stock market has declined, now we have people that are on the same fixed income that are making the decisions between expenses such as their utilities or food, independent of the context of 135 or not, or however it's weighted. So those are the concerns. And as an analogy that I have given to others, for some folks, the impact of any increase is a pinch to their overall financial situation. And for others, it will be a punch. Because again, not everyone feels it the same. So those are, the competing thoughts that I have, again, the grand scheme of things and the individual impact. Yes.
Yes, I share your sentiments of, going back and forth for the reasons you stated. And then I start thinking about all the new homes we're building in North Palm Desert and all the people. And we only have so much manpower to get to people when they have an emergency. Oftentimes, seconds matter. So if we don't have the funds for another fire station, that means that, I know, like there is a fire station in South Palm Desert, right? But that fire station might get called all the way to North Palm Desert. And so really this is not a district issue. It's a Palm Desert issue. And that's what I'm grappling with. I did wish I know we're not talking about the language in the ballot. I just would like assurances that the top priority is public safety.
The top priority is public safety. Part of creating that document that showed the tier 1 and tier 2 priorities would be exactly how the money would be spent if the voters approved it, and that would be putting that new fire station in place and adding the fire personnel to ensure that our response times, it's not necessarily about improving the service, it's making sure that our quality of service today and the response times throughout all of Palm Desert remain the same as we layer in new development. And it's the same argument with the Sheriff's Department employees. In the spending plan that Veronica showed, that we would immediately add 3 more officers to the contract. And then in year 3, I think it was 3 more. So that's 6 total. But for exactly the reasons that you're articulating is to kind of layer out and match that growth and make sure that our service levels do not slip. We're already seeing calls taking a little longer on the police side because of some additional regulations they're having to deal with. It's having an impact, and we are starting to see response times slowing a little bit on the fire side. So this is really important as we grow and get built out, that we give those folks the tools to keep our service level where it is.
Yes.
I have thoughts. I'm wondering if we should pause to get public comment, or did you want us to continue?
While we have our esteemed finance director here, I think it would be a good time to ask our detailed questions as we evolve. Absolutely have public comment, but while we have her attention here, I would prefer to do so. Yes.
Okay, thank you for all the work, Veronica. Appreciate it. And I know I've asked you and Todd this question a million times, but I'd like it to be heard publicly. Because I'm always looking for alternatives. I hate voting for a tax raise. But upon build out of the northern end of town, roughly 5,000 homes, let's say, roughly how much property tax revenue would that generate?
So for the city.
For the city.
For the city, it's a complicated matter. The North Sphere is predominantly still in what we call a project area for the redevelopment agency. The city is not a taxing entity, does not have a pass-through agreement with the redevelopment agency. So the city does not derive any additional property tax funds or tax increment from the north area, aside from what they call SB 211, which is just a minute amount. So our current value in that area from, say, Marriott all the way up to the freeway is $2.4 billion. The city receives about $300,000 a year out of that area. And so at build out, considering that Marriott's included, there's no way that we're going to match that, double it, triple it, whatever we anticipate is going to be less than that. So I can't see it doubling what we receive as the city. The same goes for fire. Fire also does not have a tax agreement in project area 2. And so the amount they receive is almost matches what the city receives. So we're not going to see much. If we see 150 million, I think was the number that we talked about, our percentage of the 1% is going to be a drop in the bucket. It's probably $100,000 max. Again, I need Excel to give you a good number.
I recall through our discussions, it was in the 6 figures, not the 7 figures.
Yeah, it's nowhere near that.
Right. And yet those 5,000 additional homes will require, in order to keep our levels of service, will require millions of dollars of investment in public safety. So certainly property tax is not, even upon build, to say, wow, that's going to be 5,000 new homes, we're going to generate a ton of property tax. It's not the case. So just want to make sure everybody understood that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, just to add some context to that point that you made, Councilmember Truby, The first full year after if this was approved and we added the additional firefighters and police personnel, we would be looking at about $12 million expense. And it billed out about $100,000 a year net incremental income from the property tax, which is why we just couldn't consider that.
And earlier we had discussed the conversation that was presented that if we were to adjust our TOT rate or our hotel tax essentially, that would not be a suitable alternative. And your response was no way.
That's correct.
And you
If
said-
we matched the highest one at 13.5, we would only generate about $5 million. And that doesn't meet the need long-term. Did I go out? So we would have to double our current rate to get anywhere close to what the need is.
Yeah, thank you. We wanted to be sure to address all of the conversations that have been presented, not only at the podium, but in our conversations. More questions?
I just wanted to add to that. There's another little piece. Not only would you have to double it, that sounds good, but then doubling it becomes more difficult because now we have raised the TOT to a point where we will discourage our big business and corporate travelers from coming in. So we wouldn't be able to. So there's another piece to that.
I recall recently at one of the events I attended in hearing that if someone has a stroke or a heart attack, that every 1 minute that goes by without support could lead to a drop of 10% in quality of life, and that is recovered. So again, as we bounce all of these ideas back and forth, we have a lot to balance. If we have no more questions, I'll take public comment now. Anything else? One more or no? Now I moved them. Where did I put them? Okay, Stephen Nelson for item 10B.
Thank you, Mayor, City Council. I'll make a statement of general support for the measure. But my comments are associated with the expenditures. There was a comment just made, if we raise the TOT tax, to the highest amount, that would be $5 million. The total issue is 15 million. So we're looking at a third of the problem being erased by equaling the TOT to the maximum rate that Palm Springs is. So I have to ask that why are we not looking at a multi-pronged plan of addressing it, not weighing all on the actual taxpayer, but this is, as Councilwoman Nastandi said, this is a Palm Desert problem. So we have to look at our past expenditures, our luxury expenditures. And I think we have to tighten our belt, quite frankly, because how are we going to we're going to be back in this situation again. And our public safety, both the sheriff and the fire department, they deserve raises just like our city employees deserve raises. A job well done is a job well done, and everybody deserves the right to an increase in pay. So I think we have to revisit our expenditures. I want to see that we have some skin in the game in the reduction of expenses, so we don't have to necessarily put the entire problem on the taxpayer. And I've asked of the staff to get a report to show where we have tightened our belts. I'm going to look at that to see if I've gotten that when I get home. Hopefully I do. And then, I'll come back to you and say, these are the areas where we can tighten our belts. So I think we should give that certainly some consideration before approving this measure as stated.
Thank you. Our next speaker, Mr. Brad Anderson.
Great. Thank you again, Brad Anderson. I currently live in the city of Rancho Mirage. I wanted to speak on this item today. Um, I just want to urge this council to consider this matter very close. Again, if it does go to the voters will decide. But I've seen this happen before where the city is well aware of what they're doing, and I'm sure they have thousands, if not tens of thousands of dollars invested in this proposition. Now it's not a proposition, but in this attempt to sway voters to approve this. I guess I'm heavily concerned because I just can tell you, I don't even shop in Palm Springs because of the high sales tax that they have. Most people probably don't know. It is a tourist area, and I'm sure tourists come in and I'm sure they rethink their visit for the next time just because of that. And I know with Casino City, when they did the parks, they raised their sales tax. Same thing. I avoid it. But I'm probably the only one that notices things like this. But I am concerned because apparently to the staff report, this was this deficit, I'm going to call it, was known for at least 3 years by the city, and you steer right ahead with the library possession of the library, and I noticed on the the sheet that for the 5-year plan, you have a new park that you want to build. I think it's $30,000, $30 million. So, and I'm with the last speaker. I think you need to really look at your expenditures or how you spend the people's money. And the reason I say that, because I read through the staff report, but I didn't see any responsibility from the city in that. It was always somebody else, supply issues, stuff like that. But none that the city may have not managed them funds in the best possible manner, stewardship for the public monies that you receive. And I think that's the issue. I think you really need to rethink how you spend the money and maybe live within your means. And that's all I have. Even the plaque, I see over there, I think that's like $10,000 you spent. And a banner, if you buy a banner, it's the same principle. I think you need to watch what you spend your money or spend the people's money on. And I wouldn't list you anymore. I have a written statement I will submit to. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Our final speaker on item 10B, Greg Ackerman.
Good afternoon, good evening. Thank you for having me here to speak today. My name is Greg Ackerman. I live here in Palm Desert. I attended 2 of the town hall meetings regarding this topic, and I learned a lot from the staff report. I did not, however, see in those staff reports at the 2 events I was at. Today we had a wonderful slide that was called Options Considered, and that was very helpful and informative. I don't remember seeing that at either of the meetings I attended, and I think the community might have benefited from that, because what we were presented was there's a 5-year, well, several years out, roughly 5 years, where we run out of money in the reserves, and that there's really only one solution. That's how I felt when I walked out of that meeting, was that there's only one path, and it's a 1% tax increase, and that there's really nothing we can do to stop this reserves from going to zero. It's going to happen. And that there really aren't any options. And I think we've heard from a council member and some other people here that are wishing there was some other option. It feels a little desperate that we only have one path forward, perhaps. We were told that 70% of the out-of-towners will be, that's where all the new taxes will come from this 1%, that 70% of that money will really be from people who don't live here. That sounds impressive and optimistic at first, but I have another way of looking at that says 100% of everyone who lives in Palm Desert will be spending more money because of this. And I think we should really take that into consideration. Everyone who lives here will have to spend a little bit more money. But if this tax is really the only way to solve our problems, okay, I guess I can see that that's a possibility. We have some wonderful representatives of our sheriff and CAL FIRE here today. I would like to make sure we have language. Apparently, I'm baffled as to why the council's not allowed to talk about the language in this, but I don't think that applies to me. You're being asked to pass a resolution that has language in it, but not talk about the language. I find that very confusing. But I saw some language that was put up on the screen briefly about the resolution that says part of what the money could be spent on is ensuring long-term finances and for general government use. That's the kind of stuff that I would like to have not in the language. If we're going to spend it on mostly on public safety, CAL FIRE and our sheriff, then let's make the language very binding so that it doesn't get spent on things like general government use. If we're going to raise the taxes and ask people to join in this endeavor, let's limit what the money gets spent on and make the language as clear as possible. Thank you very much.
Thank you. In regards to his questions, can we have the attorney, since we can't address that question, is it permissible or appropriate?
About why it can't be limited to certain things?
Mr. Ackerman, were those the questions that you were asking, where you asked that since we couldn't discuss it, your question was regarding the procedure, or?
It was just baffling that you can't talk about the text of the issue, but I assumed I could. That's all I meant.
Okay. So, but it was in regards to that specific line of language. That's what I'm saying. We can't discuss that part. Is that something that can be taken into consideration for another time?
I think what Jim Priest would tell us, and we can certainly pull up. We did a couple things to try to address concerns that Mr. Ackerman is articulating. The first one was the spending plan. It essentially is a promise to the community that this is exactly where the money's going. It obligates about 2/3 of the money pretty quickly to ongoing expenses for police personnel, fire personnel, and public works personnel to make sure that our service level stands. Our legal counsel, and Jim, I'll defer to you, he drew a bright line between our spending plan and then actually making that part of the ballot language or the resolution. And I'll need to defer to him as far as exactly the legal reason why.
Mr. Priest,
Is he still here?
Mr. Priest, are you there?
Can you
Yes, we can hear you.
Anthony?
We can hear you.
My video is
Jim, we don't need your
that
video.
you can't start your-
Jim, we don't need your video. We can hear you.
Okay, very well. For general government use language is a legal requirement when you propose a general tax. And legally, while spending priorities are being expressed in that resolution, which is attached to these actions, this legally is still a general tax. And so we have to use language for general government use. And then ensuring long-term finances. That is language that in discussions with staff earlier, that was added. If the city council wants, as I indicated earlier, if this wants to suggest further changes to that ballot question, I might suggest that you ask staff to take a further look at it, or we form a subcommittee to meet to discuss, reworking that language. But I can tell you the for general government use language does need to be in there because of the nature of this tax.
Yeah, if I remember the way it was explained to us, any special tax that is dedicated to one cause and one cause only has a higher threshold to pass, 2/3 plus one, whereas a general tax is 50% plus one, which is why we went for the general. Is that right?
That was part of the explanation. There's two paths to follow. The other part of that explanation is that there are additional non-public safety services that were important to the community that we put in place in order to handle the growth and make sure that our service level remains very strong. Public works crews, stormwater systems, that sort of thing. So we did not want to limit ourselves from being able to take care of those infrastructure needs and the additional personnel that we need to provide service all around the community in equal fashion.
I heard anyone else? Thomas, you're more than welcome to start with your comment.
I'd be happy to. We all appreciate the fact we live in a very safe and secure city. And we know we do. Palm Desert is very safe. But we're watching as we grow, we have greater needs for public safety. And if we don't do something now, if we wait and do it later, that's not prudent. We see there will be an issue as those doors, we talk about 5,000 homes. That's great, but that's not 5,000 people. We're talking 15, 20,000 people perhaps. And we need greater public safety for those people, and they deserve it just like everyone who is enjoying it right now. For us to not do anything right now, should we take the city bankrupt? I mean, that's not Palm Desert, that's not a standard. So this is the best path, and we have explored it. And the reason we have left it broad and ambiguous is, yes, we know public safety is primary, is foundational for a strong and vibrant city. But we also know Hillary and COVID show up every once in a while, and we have to be prepared to take care of that. And the way we do that is ensuring that we have funds in a fashion that when these show up, we can go out there and take care of them. And then there are the day-to-day, as I said, the public safety. So this is something that's important to the city. No one likes a tax increase. There's no one. But no one likes to call 911 and not get a response. And they don't like that to a much greater level than they don't like a 1 cent sales tax. So again, for that reason, I support this. I support the staff's recommendation. And I'm just going to make the motion to support the staff recommendation, and perhaps someone will second it for further discussion.
Part of this is several options, right? It's first off is the option to move forward with the resolution, and then also a subcommittee if we approve the resolution.
Yeah, he was laying out several options for the council. Our recommendation is that this be approved and move forward. We have worked with him, and I think he did a good job of explaining some of the constraints that we've been working against and why certain language had to be placed in the resolution. So you've certainly got that option. We would recommend that this be approved tonight.
I will second the motion for discussion. I do have comments.
By all means.
I
I will second since nobody hopped in for you, so I will second for you.
Oh,
Just as a procedural measure, by all means.
okay. First, deepest thanks and gratitude to our staff for the amazing amount of work you have done to bring this to us. You have represented Palm Desert's highest traditions and standards. We enjoy a wonderful place to live because the staff who preceded you and the people who sat on this dais were always looking forward and taking steps in the present for the future. They adopted policies that spurred economic growth and made Palm Desert the retail center of the Coachella Valley. The sales tax from that status has been our bread and butter for our quality of life in an environment where we get a paltry portion of property tax. It is truly amazing that the excellent staff of this city have retained a high level of service with a low sales tax, while other communities, India, La Quinta, Palm Springs, have built competing retail centers reliant upon the infrastructure they can fund with higher sales taxes. It's truly an immense credit to our staff that we haven't come to this day until now. But as our status as the retail center of the valley is challenged by increasing retail options to the east and to the west, we have to make sure we can fund the infrastructure investments today that will secure our quality of life for the future, just like our predecessors have done. This is a necessity, and I hope and expect that our residents will appreciate that. Materials we've been presented with include a 5-year spending plan and priorities which do prioritize public safety and do acknowledge the need to assure sufficient funds for general government use. I never want to be in a situation like Tropical Storm Hillary, where the city manager has to say, I'm sorry, we don't have the budget to bring in extra contractors to do that cleanup right now. We've tightened our belt, so we'll just have to get it done over the next 6 months. That's not good enough for our residents, and it's not good enough for our businesses. So I'm persuaded that this is a necessity. I celebrate staff's discovery that the many visitors who come to our city and create some of the need for public safety services will participate to a 70% degree in helping to fund those. I really appreciate, Mayor, your questions about folks who are budgeting very, very tightly. And I budget tightly too. And my experience is when we budget tightly, a much higher percentage of our expenditures are in the tax-free category. A much higher percentage of our expenditures go for groceries or prescriptions or rent. So I'm confident that those who are most financially stressed won't be paying that average $135. They'll be paying less because folks who do have more discretionary dollars to go out to dinner or buy a new outfit will be paying more. So I support the resolution.
Additional thoughts, comments? As I'm hearing all of the swirling thoughts, ideas, questions, it's become a common thread that we have to look and prioritize where we're spending. Public safety We say the words, but what that means is it comes down to life and death. It's not just people that are putting up cones. It's not just somebody that's checking for speed. When we're looking at the changes in laws, that means that our fire personnel can no longer work more than 56 hours a week. At the first coffee with the mayor, we had kids that were there, and one of the questions they asked was about our fire personnel. And I asked, what was the longest that you have gone without sleep? And the response from that man, and I wish I could remember who it was, but he said 72 hours. No one that is putting their life on the line by going into a burning building should do so without having had minimal sleep. 56 hours a week sounds like a lot, but when you're willing to put your life on the line, we have to respect you. As stated, we are seeing unprecedented growth, and just as we're proud of the growth, we have to be proud that we're providing safe circumstances and safe communities. We want to put a park there. We want to be sure that we're able to respond both in terms of law enforcement as necessary, but our fire personnel, which also have EMTs on board. There are conversations that have included of how we are prioritizing our spending, and fully agree that we need to tighten our belts. We see the priorities that are there, but beyond other priorities, I think there are places that we could shave off a little here and there. For example, recently, the Lupin Plaza project, that was $4 million that was reallocated. A vanity project where the city said, we don't need that. Our residents said, we don't need it. The council listened and responded. I think that this opportunity for engagement, outside of the great job of having so many outreach sessions, when it is common for people to say, I haven't heard of it, we can't possibly get to everyone. But when an effort is made to have that many town halls at different times, different days, and different areas of the city, that is excellent because it shows we truly want to hear from folks and getting them engaged. That is what a city is supposed to do. There is a lot to balance, not only as individuals and priorities, but ultimately balance the city's finances. I have also heard from residents that maybe we can pass or delay this for 2 years and reconsider that maybe this be put on the ballot for 2026. When I heard that, it sounded again like an interesting idea, but when we factor in the essential growth, when we factor in the police reports that are coming in from other cities where it doesn't have to originate in Palm Desert. Things that have happened recently, I heard of a carjacking that started in Rancho Mirage, and they didn't stay in Rancho Mirage, they came here. So support from Palm Desert personnel then goes to support those operations. Overall, we're here to protect our residents. And one way to do that is let everyone feel safe on their day-to-day so they don't have to think about law enforcement. So they can go about their day and not think about these things. And that's a privilege that some communities do not have. As someone who also lives on a very fixed income and someone who uses cooling centers, for example, because these, accelerated rates aren't something within my budget, I see the tightening, but I also see the choking that would happen to the city if we don't support an opportunity to expand responsibly. So those are my thoughts. Yes, seeing no other comments, we can, and any
Madam
comments
Mayor?
online or anything else that we forgot?
No
to-
comments online.
Okay.
Just 2 points of clarification. One is in the motion, is it to adopt the revised version of the wording that was presented by staff?
Yes, I believe so, yes.
And then the second is there is another question, whether the city council desires to designate any of its members to file the primary arguments for or against the ballot measure.
So is that the subcommittee question that I was?
No, it would
Okay.
be, so essentially the council can designate its full council or any number of members to author the arguments for or against the ballot measure. If it was the full council, then yes, 2 members will need to technically be the authors, so it doesn't violate the Brown Act. And then it will be submitted. But you would be signatories, the other members.
Oh, I thought we were going to have the subcommittee do.
I'm so sorry. Mayor, members of the
Thank you,
council.
Mr. Priest.
I would be happy to be on that committee to
Can we get his response first before we get
Ration that.
volunteers?
Mr. Priest, was there something you wanted to say?
Yes, I may. Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. Different subcommittee. I was in one context about a subcommittee about looking at the measure and the ballot question. That does not seem to be an issue at this point. It seems that the motion is leading forward, calling the resolutions with the revised version of the ballot question with no further revision there. This would be a different subcommittee whose sole purpose would be to offer an argument or rebuttal that would go into the voter information, go into the ballot to either support or oppose the measure. So different issues, it would be a different subcommittee. The first subcommittee sounds like it's off the table. This would be a different subcommittee. Specific for yeah.
It was a little choppy. So to clarify and be sure that everyone understands, can you please repeat that, Mr.
Certainly.
Clerk?
So if the council were to select a subcommittee, that subcommittee would be charged with authoring the arguments for or against the ballot measure. And then if there were any other council members who want to be signatories to that argument, you would need to indicate so tonight.
So if we've got the people that would want to be the subcommittee, would this been in this case deciding if we have a subcommittee of the council that would want to write in favor of? And then would we have a subcommittee that would choose to be in opposition, or would they nix each other if there would be folks that would want to go together?
No, so similar to how we did ballot measure B, 4 of the council members wanted to write the arguments in opposition to the ballot measure, and then 1 council member wanted to write the opinion in support. And then when those 4 council members did decide to be signatories, 2 members were authors. They used their personal time and did not use city resources in authoring the argument. And then it was submitted. And then the other 2 members were signatories to it.
Okay, perfect. That's what I wanted to clarify, knowing that in the past 4 had been on supporting versus opposing another. Yes.
I heard Councilmember Harnick volunteer to be on a drafting subcommittee. I also volunteer. I don't think others need to decide tonight whether to be signatory. They can look at the argument first.
Mr. Priest, is it required that they designate the number of members who will be signatories tonight, or can they decide that at a later time?
Yeah, thank you for the question. No, that is not necessary this evening. All that would need to happen this evening is to have the subcommittee designated by the council to author the argument. And then if additional council members wanted to be signatories to that argument, they would basically just come down to the city clerk's office and sign their name to it without adding any edits or any other embellishments, just coming in and signing what the subcommittee had authored. But that doesn't have to be determined tonight, just the subcommittee members.
Thank you.
Okay, I was going to make a motion.
Okay. Just, do you have any additional comments or thoughts? So just to follow up, if we don't have to, so the motion right now would, I assume, be in order to move forward the resolution and the secondary component, or would it be part of the same motion?
It can all be one motion if the motion maker accepts it. So it would be to pass staff's recommendation with the revised language and to appoint Councilmember Harnick and Kelly to a subcommittee to author the arguments.
The motion maker accepts that wording.
As does the second.
And if I may, just to clarify, Madam Mayor, these would be subcommittee members to author the argument in favor of the measure, correct?
I didn't hear that one of the words. This would,
It's in favor of the argument.
okay,
Yes.
perfect. So
Okay.
then do we
And-
have to specify that? Is the motion say in regarding that or to approve, just to go back and follow all of the formalities?
I would
Okay, there we go,
advise.
establish.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I would advise the council this evening, if you so direct, to adopt the resolutions calling the election with the revised version of the ballot question. And then for the motion for designating the subcommittee, it would be council members Harnick and Kelly writing the argument in favor. I do not believe I've heard any direction from the council, nor is any necessary about designating authors against the measure. If there's no designation made by the council, then any association in the city or individual citizens would be free to submit their own arguments against. That would just be up to them.
Thank you for clarifying. I appreciate the info on allowing or inviting external members of the community to come and provide the important discussion in opposition. Well, we have heard a first and a second. Can we please have the vote?
Motion passes 5-0.
Since we do have quite a lengthy amount of space here that we have for public comment, would you like a 5-minute recess, everyone? Since I think we can take a 5. It is 5:31. Let's come back at 5:36.
If we
Excuse me?
need to, I'm good to go.
I would like just a 5-minute break. Thank you. So it's 5:31. Again, let us come back at 5:36. See, I guess maybe someone else needed a little break too. Okay, we now continue. It is I'm taking us back like it's daylight savings or something. It is 6:37. At this point, we will continue to the public hearings. The public may comment on individual public hearing items within the 3-minute time limit. The applicant or appellant will be provided up to 5 minutes to make their presentation. Speakers may utilize one of the 3 options listed on the first page of this agenda. So we will declare the public hearing open and start with item 11A, resolution to amend and adopt local guidelines for implementing the California Environmental Quality Act, Public Resource Code 21000. And the recommendation, please.
Okay,
Or
thank
staff
you.
presentation.
Thank you, Honorable Mayor and council members. The California Environmental Quality Act is a state law that requires local jurisdictions to consider environmental impacts. It intends to disclose to the public and decision makers any significant impacts. It's comprised of 2 portions, the CEQA statutes and the CEQA guidelines. The CEQA guidelines interpret the law based on updates in legislation. CEQA is continuously evolving, and that is why we're bringing this item here tonight to seek your approval for an update to the CEQA guidelines. The updated document attached to your staff report was prepared by the city's attorney's office and generally implements the updates in state law based on legislative updates and recent court decisions. It is a relatively routine action that should be completed every couple of years or so. And so with that, this is a public hearing. The item was noticed, and pursuant to CEQA, this action would be exempt, but staff is recommending that you implement the Planning Commission's recommendation to approve the resolution as presented, which will update the CEQA guidelines. And that concludes my presentation. If you have any questions, I'm available here.
As you mentioned, since there was no opposition, do we have any opposition, Mr. Clerk, since the meeting has started?
No, Madam Mayor.
Okay, wonderful. Do we have any questions or comments from staff? I mean, just listen to me from council. My only comment would be that as a member that sits on the League of Cities Environmental Quality Policy Committee, a lot of folks either love CEQA or hate CEQA, but the one thing everyone can agree on is it needs to be updated. And as long as we are complying with the evolving codes and making sure that we are keeping not only the standards, but the balance of how CEQA is used. So thank you for bringing this forward and for your support. And since there is no public comment at this point, I will close public hearing. And do we have any deliberation?
Move to approve.
Second.
And now I will.
Motion passes 5-0.
Now, public hearing for item 11B. Approve the DDLA-related resolutions, loan from the Housing Authority, and actions related to the conveyance of assessor's parcel number 622-370-014 by and between the authority pursuant to HNS Section 33433.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor, members of the City Council and Authority Board. Before you, you have an item of request recommending. I'm sorry, hold on a second. Did I do it wrong? There we go. Apologize. Before you, you have for consideration a recommendation from staff to hold a public hearing and adopt a housing authority resolution approving a disposition, development, and loan agreement, including the exhibits in its substantial form for the donation of the authority-owned vacant property located off of Country Club, as known as Assessor Parcel 622-370-014 to Chelsea Investment Corporation for the construction of 39 units restricted to extremely low, very low, and low income qualified households and one manager unit pursuant to Health and Safety Code Section 33-433. The remaining actions and recommendations being requested are related to this conveyance. As you can see on the vicinity site map, the site is a vacant site off of Country Club Drive, south of Desert Arc. And on the east side of the property is Las Serenas Housing Authority property senior community. Before we can consider the disposition and development agreement for approval, the Housing Authority acquired this site in 2012 as part of the housing assets that were transferred from the former redevelopment agency. The redevelopment agency acquired it a year prior to the Housing Authority acquiring the property being transferred to the Housing Authority. Apologize. The property is 1.84 acres. The Housing Authority, as a housing successor, proposes to convey the site to Chelsea Investment Corporation as the developer. The conveyance of the site is subject to the reporting requirements imposed by Health and Safety Code Section 33-433. And the requirements are for noticing the conveyance, and it was publicly noticed twice in the Desert Sun on May 30th and June 6th. The second part is to prepare a summary report and make it available to the public to review. The report is supposed to summarize the financial terms with which the associated disposition would be made to Chelsea Investments. During that period of time of public review, no comments and no inquiries were made. The disposition and development loan agreement has certain terms for the development the terms that Chelsea needs to meet, which would be to develop 40 units. It's a one-phase project that will require 100% of the units as affordable to households earning 60% AMI or less for 55 years. There is also a restriction that a minimum of 10 of the 39 units must be designated to qualifying households with developmental and intellectual disabilities and/or participants of Desert Arc. The Housing Authority will donate the land and provide a loan of $3 million to assist the developer with developer impact fees as well as construction costs. The loan term will have 3% simple interest per year and to be repaid from proportional share of the project's residual receipts. The developer will also pay a $5,000 annual monitoring fee to offset the Housing Authority staff's compliance review. The term of the DDLA will expire in December 31, 2025, and that will give Chelsea an opportunity to apply minimally 2 times to any funding sources that they proposed based on the pro forma received and the sources that they identified. I do want to make a note that with regards to this project, the Housing Authority is assisting this project, is providing financial assistance to this project in a larger amount than normally we have historically provided to other projects. This one, we are providing if you quantify, it's $75,000 per unit versus other projects. This is due to the size of the project because you lose a lot of economies of scales, as well as the inefficiencies of absence in state funding sources that require us as the housing authority to leverage more assistance to a project. However, the assistance to this project is a benefit. There is restrictions that will require 39 of the units, as I mentioned, to be restricted. This is a table that provides the breakdown of how the affordability restriction will be provided. Just to give an overview of what the income limits are for the qualifying categories that have been identified in this affordability mix, you can see a family of 4 persons at 30% AMI, the max that household would, in order to qualify, the maximum household income would be 31,200 and so forth for the other household size. KMA was engaged and performed a fair reuse analysis and concluded that the request from the developer of $3 million for assistance is reasonable. I will turn it over to Nick Maloney, our principal planner.
Hi, thank you. Just for some background, the project has received all of the necessary entitlement approvals, which included a precise plan and conditional use permit. They applied in January of this year and received approval at Planning Commission on May 21st. They worked with staff who reviewed the project to confirm that it complies with all the applicable development standards. The applicant went through Architectural Review Commission and held community engagement meetings just to gather input from some of the surrounding residents, and it was approved at Planning Commission with some conditions added in response to some of the comments through that engagement procedure. And so the project is a 40-unit apartment development, 40,000 square foot building with on-site open space, and it is 2 stories. So on this screen, you see the color elevations and the site plan that was approved. And just for context, here's a composite that shows that site plan overlaid so you get a sense of how this will fit within the context of the surrounding area. So in conclusion, Planning Commission approved it, and this is one of the conditions of that project approval. So I'll turn it over back to Jessica.
Being next to Desert Arc and the location of this site being near a lot of community services, health centers, and transit, grocery stores, staff recommends that the authority board hold a public hearing on this item pursuant to Health and Safety Code 333-433 and on the proposed conveyance of the land as a land donation to Chelsea Investment Corporation for the construction of Arc Village Apartments, approve the draft DDLA, its exhibits, and approve the loan in the amount of $3 million and the related actions, and that the City Council adopt as well a resolution approving the conveyance pursuant to the DDLA and Health and Safety Code 333-433. Staff is available for any questions. KMA, our consultant, is also online, and we have Jeff Ryan with Chelsea Corporation available for questions as well.
Questions? Yes.
Thank you for the report. Appreciate it. One thing, if the $3 million loan, it's at a 3% interest rate paid back. I didn't see the length of the loan.
It would be for 55 years.
Okay, got it. And the Desert Arc residence, 10 units dedicated to the Desert Arc residence, is that independent living or do they have caretakers, or do you know?
The intent and the vision of this community is so that they could be living independently. And that is why Desert Arc would be a good source that is nearby and next to them to help them through that independent form of living.
Okay, and last question, this is RDA land or was designated by the RDA for us. If we didn't do this project, potentially we could lose it, is that right? Or the state could somehow claw back money, is that right?
Well, it was formerly owned by the Palm Desert Redevelopment Agency. So as a housing asset, it is required for us to develop it as affordable housing. If we don't develop it as such, then yes, the state can take it from us and we would not have an option to have a designation of what to do with it.
Perfect. I'm a big fan of the project. I like it, and thank you for the presentation.
Any additional?
Of no questions.
Okay. My question, given that, we're here in the scope of taxes and all of the things financial, I think it would be irresponsible of me to not address that there's a $3 million number attached to it, fully understanding that, again, the state has passed the mandate that if it's available, it has to go first dibs to affordable housing. So that's clearly there. But again, I know that our residents deserve to have info on the $3 million attached to it.
Yes.
Is there anything that they need to know in order to?
The amount of the money that is being provided for the assistance that is our housing asset fund. And that is required to be provided to low mod income households. And we have to be able to use that fund towards these new projects. And that is also why we engaged KMA, our consultant, to ensure that there is a feasibility for the project to be successful, but also that our housing asset fund is being used properly and it is reasonable within the request being made.
Thank you.
And I would just add to Jessica's comments, part of the dollar amount that was arrived is also to try to ensure it's a tough parcel to develop, as you all know. We were trying to ensure their best opportunity with the partnership to get it funded and make sure this deal happens. So that also entered into this in terms of how it would be scored.
Perfect. Yeah, I agree. That is a very tough site and tough engagement with the neighbors in the area, the direction of the fire personnel in and out. I know that was been a lengthy discussion, so I agree that is a substantial factor to add in. Did you have a comment question?
I have a comment. This is a wonderful project. I am so happy to see it coming to fruition. And I'm going to keep my fingers crossed to make sure and just hope that you get the additional funding, because this is so necessary, not only to Palm Desert, but it's a regional asset with the formula that is in place. And on that, I would like to move approval.
Before we do so, do we have any comments?
No public comment, Madam Mayor.
Do we have any other questions before? Okay, wonderful. We have a motion.
Second.
Motion passes 5-0.
Now close the public hearing. Having done so, do we have any informational items? I would like to put the word out there for those that have not heard. We have another cooling center that has been added. So thank you to staff and everyone involved in hearing my push and continued plea for an additional cooling center. And this one has been added at Cal State San Bernardino. So it's added in a different part of the city, beneficial to our students. And I'm beyond words excited and thankful for that. So it touches me very deeply to know we've expanded those services. If there is nothing else from my peers, and I adjourn this meeting at 6:55 p.m. Be well.